So how important is a power steering fluid flush? We're going to find out today.
Go in for the buy one get one free $20 oil change. They typically try to upsell a power steering fluid flush. Now, the purpose of flushing the fluid is really in all a good idea. However, oftentimes the severity is not necessarily as extreme. And so we're here just to provide the information, just so you know what it is and also know what goes on in your power steering system. Now, most vehicles take several different kinds of fluid for their power steering. Now, the best way to know if you're one that checks under your hood is the cap of your power steering fluid. It'll tell right on top whether it uses Merck, power steering fluid, ATF, whatever it is, it'll tell you. And typically that's the best way to decipher if you need to top it off or if you needed to change it, but that's how you tell. Now, Honda uses a specific Honda power steering fluid. It's a lighter viscosity than the regular power steering fluid. The idea of that is that their tolerances are built tighter in their pumps and stuff, and so they need a thinner oil. However, if you put the thicker oil in, just a regular power steering fluid, you can sometimes notice in cold weather a shudder or an issue steering. When it warms up, it probably feels fairly normal. It's not the end of the world if you put some in and mix it a little, but it is highly recommended to use the manufacturer-specific fluid that's needed for the system. A lot of Dodges and Chryslers use ATF plus 4. It's their transmission fluid with an additive. The additive is a slip lubricant, and so it is important to use that in their pumps. Toyota also uses ATF in some of their vehicles, an older Merck style transmission fluid. And then a lot of the other generic vehicles will just use typical power steering fluid. A lot of the Chevys and Fords. Some Fords do use transmission fluid also. So it's important to see what's on the cap, just so you understand how your system works. You have a power steering pump. It's driven by the belt on your motor, and it hydraulically creates pressure. Your steering rack, which is what's tied to your wheels, that'll make them turn, that unit, as you steer, the hydraulic pressure will push and help it steer easier, so you don't have to, that's how we get the nice power steering that's easy to turn. But that fluid cycles, it gets hot, it moves back and forth a lot, and so it does get contaminants in it. Power steering fluid starts out like a light honey color. If you use ATF in power steering, then it's going to start out a nice light pink. However, it can get to a darker color, a dark brown, a black, a dark reddish brown. And at that point, the fluid's getting bad. And it is recommended to change it, but the severity is not as big as they hype it up to be. If it goes too far, if it becomes black, it starts to wear out the pump itself and the rack itself. And so those are the two things you're trying to prevent from wearing down. Now, how long does it take to do that? Oftentimes longer than they might say. So this is not a service recommended every 30 or 60,000 even. Between 100 and 150,000 is where we'll see most vehicles start making that fluid look a little darker. And that's a good time to replace it. It's not uncommon for vehicles around the 150,000 mile mark to have a power steering pump failure. At that point, when they replace a pump, typically it's recommended to flush the fluid. So this is not an item that has to be replaced often, because things like power steering pumps wear out, power steering pressure lines wear out. There's things that can wear out, and at that point, that would be the time to flush it. So, it is a fluid that is recommended to keep clean. It's just not needed immediately.
And when in doubt, you can always ask to look at it. So if you guys like that video and you guys like my new haircut,
it is nice.
go ahead and push like and share this video, and we would love for you to subscribe to our channel so that we can see you again next Wednesday. Bye.